Why is it that the Vietnamese people can eat rice their entire lives, perhaps 3 times a day, 365 days a year, and never grow tired of it? The answer is woven deeply into the tapestry of our national identity. Rice is not merely a staple, it is fundamental to the Vietnamese worldview, immortalized in countless cultural aphorisms. From Te La Mère Route, plain rice is our biological mother, suggesting that it is the ultimate non-negotiable source of sustenance. From Deo Can Ngot, sweet rice, sweet soup, which beautifully describes a prosperous and harmonious domestic life, and its mournful opposite, Kam Chang Lan Kan Chang Ngot, neither the rice is good nor the soup is sweet, signaling a fractured or failing relationship. The simple white grain long ago transcended its function as food, entering the realm of Vietnamese folklore and linguistic consciousness. If you were to genuinely ask an average Vietnamese person how long it has been since their last bowl of rice, the question itself might elicit genuine astonishment, perhaps even a chuckle. After all, what kind of person skips rice daily? It is not treated as a special dish nor a novelty item reserved for specific meals, but rather a constant, unassuming presence, as essential and ubiquitous as the act of drinking water or the very air we breathe. Go without rice for just 1 or 2 meals, and a genuine, almost physical craving, a nagging feeling of incompleteness in the stomach begins to set in. So, what truly explains this lifelong, unwavering devotion to the grain? The foundational reasons are rooted in geography and deep historical necessity. Vietnam is perhaps one of the very few nations whose entire history of survival, population growth, and cultural development is inextricably linked to the demanding but highly productive cultivation of wet rice. The Red River Delta in the north and the immense Mekong Delta in the south are far more than just 2 expansive rice baskets. They are the fertile cradles where high population densities historically formed, where villages clustered densely in sophisticated systems, and where a deep-seated, intensely sustainable sedentary culture was established millennia ago. For these enduring communities, rice has consistently provided the essential energy needed for heavy labor, yielded multiple reliable harvests per year, and sustained far greater populations than virtually any other staple crop could under the same tropical conditions. Consequently, for the Vietnamese people, eating rice is not merely a choice among many, it is the absolute default setting, the very bedrock of physical and spiritual existence. This absolute centrality has profoundly permeated and shaped the Vietnamese language. To ask someone if they have eaten "Ăn chưa" is fundamentally a shortcut for asking, "Have you eaten rice yet?" and "Cơm chưa." The very concept of having a full, proper meal is practically synonymous with the consumption of rice. Furthermore, in an act of linguistic deference and cultural generalization, we often offer an invitation like, "Please, grandmother, grandfather, have some rice," if the actual carbohydrate being served at that moment might be porridge, noodles, or even a potato dish. Regardless of the specifics, the default descriptor remains "Ăn cơm," eating rice. Thus, the first crucial factor is the simple yet inescapable widespread availability and foundational status of the rice grain itself. The second critical factor, one often overlooked by foreign gourmands, is the inherent quality of the specific grain most commonly consumed. The plain, non-glutinous indica rice, Gao tea, prevalent throughout Vietnam, is notably neutral, even subtly bland. It is generally not overly fragrant, rarely excessively sticky, and certainly not particularly rich or oily. In fact, compared to the famously aromatic jasmine rice of Thailand or the sweet, plump, highly lauded kernels favored in Japan, Vietnamese plain rice might even be criticized by connoisseurs for being slightly deficient in distinct flavor. However, this very lack of assertiveness, this culinary modesty, is its single greatest advantage and the key to its successful, lifelong integration into the Vietnamese diet. Vietnamese rice possesses a high degree of remarkable culinary neutrality, acting as the perfect blank canvas upon which the meal is painted. It does not demand attention, nor does it monopolize the palate, ensuring that it never overwhelms or clashes with the accompanying side dishes. This superb, silent neutrality allows it to harmonize flawlessly with the dizzying array of regional accompanying flavors: salty, sweet, sour, and spicy. For instance, heavily seasoned braised fish, kak ho man, requires huge mounds of plain rice to temper the intense saltiness. When light soup is poured directly over the grains, kanchan, the rice absorbs the liquid effortlessly, transforming the potentially dry meal into something smooth, warm, and highly satisfying. Even intensely pungent fermented fish paste, mam, works flawlessly alongside it, with the rice absorbing the shock of the strong flavor. Rice can truly be eaten with virtually anything. This represents a profound difference from many other culinary cultures where the primary starch already boasts a distinct, sometimes potent, flavor profile. When a staple carbohydrate is strongly flavored, think flavored bread or heavily spiced pilafs, diners tend to feel satisfied but sensory bored much more quickly. With Vietnamese plain rice, the resulting sensation of fullness stems from the sheer volume consumed rather than from flavor saturation. This is what permits people to consume rice day after day, year after year, without ever experiencing sensory fatigue. The next element lies in the fundamental method of consumption. Vietnamese people rarely treat rice as a monolithic, self-sufficient main course, the way one might eat a single loaf of bread or a large bowl of plain pasta. The main exception might be something highly processed like fried rice, cam rang. Instead, the traditional Vietnamese meal, bua com, is always an ensemble performance, a meticulously balanced and highly communal whole. It requires rice, a savory main dish, mon man, a generous vegetable dish, and a soup, cange, often supplemented by pickled vegetables or fermented items. Rice acts as the central pivot, performing a crucial regulatory function that guides the entire meal. A savory dish might be overwhelmingly salty. If so, rice steps in immediately to moderate it. If the soup is too light or watery, pouring it over the rice makes it palatable. Crucially, because the meal is consumed one small bite at a time, every single spoonful of rice is different, instantly altered by the specific combination of accompaniments it encounters. This constant, subtle variation ensures that although the ingredients themselves may be highly familiar, the resulting sensory experience of the meal is never truly repetitive. This explains why a bowl of plain white rice eaten with caramelized fish today tastes distinctly different from tomorrow with a simple fried egg, and completely different again when consumed with crab soup and boiled jute leaves. Furthermore, rice is perfectly adapted physiologically to the tropical climate. Hot, humid regions like Vietnam, the human body is prone to dehydration and can easily feel sluggish and heavy when forced to digest heavy, fat-laden foods. Cuisines reliant on copious butter, heavy meats, dry cheese, and rich sauces often produce an immediate sensation of lethargy when eaten in the intense tropical heat. Plain indica rice, especially when paired with a light broth-based soup, and particularly a refreshing sour soup, con chua, is entirely different. It's light, easily digestible, and provides a steady, reliable supply of glucose energy without shocking the digestive system. A traditional Vietnamese meal is, in effect, consumed almost like a fluid, simultaneously providing starch and essential hydration. This is why, even when the thermometer hits a scorching 35 to 37 degrees Celsius, the Vietnamese can still comfortably enjoy a large midday meal of rice. It is not just cultural habit, it is profound physiological suitability. Does any other country in the world consume rice with the same sheer intensity, consistency, and volume as Vietnam? A glance at the global map reveals many rice-eating nations. Japan, South Korea, Thailand, and China are all major consumers. However, if one looks closely at the day-to-day frequency, eating rice every single day, 2 or 3 times a day, year-round, the list narrows dramatically. Vietnam belongs to this very rare small group. In Japan, rice is undeniably essential, but the consumption paradigm differs significantly. Japanese rice is sticky, highly aromatic, and distinctly sweet. It is a gourmet product. The Japanese often consume smaller, measured portions, treating the rice as an independent dish to be appreciated for the quality of the grain itself. Typical Japanese rice bowl is relatively small, eaten slowly and deliberately. It is rare for a Japanese person to gorge on several large bowls, which is commonplace in Vietnam. For the Japanese, rice is something to be appreciated as an art form. For the Vietnamese, rice is something to live on and be anchored by. In South Korea, rice appears in virtually every meal, but the overall meal structure is dominated by powerful, complex, and highly aggressive flavors. Korean meals are loaded with intensely flavored kimchi and salted side dishes, banchan. Because the accompaniments are so assertive, the quantity of rice consumed is usually moderate compared to Vietnam. China represents another unique case where the utilization of rice is sharply divided by geography and climate. In southern China, the climate is ideal for wet rice cultivation, making rice the everyday staple. However, in the colder, drier north, wheat-based products like noodles, dumplings, and steamed buns, mantou, take absolute precedence over rice. Shifting to Thailand, the dominant variety is highly fragrant, long-grain jasmine rice. While Thai rice is supremely delicious, its powerful aroma and flavor can quickly lead to sensory fatigue when consumed in great volume. Thai cuisine features strong combinations of sweet, sour, and hot, where the rice serves a distinct, powerful flavor role. This comparison highlights the distinctive nature of Vietnam's relationship with rice. Vietnamese plain rice appears constantly, reliably, year-round from north to south. One might permissibly eat noodles for breakfast, but lunch still demands rice, and dinner invariably returns to the rice bowl. Crucially, Vietnamese rice is sufficiently light and adequately neutral that it never bores the palate. This is precisely why the Vietnamese can consume rice 3 times a day for decades on end without ever feeling sensory exhaustion. In short, many countries eat rice, but very few truly live with rice 365 days a year, weaving it into every single meal, as Vietnam does. In Vietnam, rice is not just a calorie source, it is the rhythm of daily life, an essential, non-negotiable habit. This deep riceification of Vietnamese life makes its role here particularly unique. Finally, there is an intangible element that is difficult to quantify: emotion and memory. The Vietnamese, rice is intimately linked to the family structure, the communal dinner tray, mum kum, and the comforting memory of a mother's cooking. Many Vietnamese who travel far eventually feel an undeniable spiritual lack. What they miss is the fundamental visceral feeling of eating rice: a simple white bowl, a pair of chopsticks, and the familiar grounding rhythm of a regular balanced meal. Rice is the essential, comforting, visceral sensation of being anchored and being home. To summarize, rice was born from Vietnam's unique geography and was refined over millennia to suit the climate. Plain indica rice is inherently bland enough to sustain long-term consumption and supremely neutral enough to harmonize any flavor. The Vietnamese meal is structurally built around rice as its inescapable axis, and perhaps deepest of all, rice is memory. Thank you for your interest in this unique culinary story, and now goodbye.